Hi, a film I watched yesterday, having finally started on my Werner Herzog collection box set, which I think I bought 7 years ago, and I've only just got around to starting. The lockdown didn't help. Was Handicapped Future, a documentary from 1970 directed by Werner Herzog. Herzog has a very long, very storied career making documentaries on a range of vastly different subjects. And this was one of his first serious documentaries on the subject of the situation of handicapped children in West Germany at the time. Been asked to make the film by a friend of his who was concerned about the welfare of disabled people. And so it's lacking many of the more idiosyncratic quirks of Herzog's other films. He seems to regard this as more of a public information film to be taken seriously, rather than a Werner Herzog film on which he can impose his own vision. It's a short film. It runs only about 44 minutes, but we speak to a number of young children, up to teenagers, who all suffer from physical handicaps, and particularly those who have moved into a new facility in Munich, which allows disabled children to live with their able bodied families and have access to shops, gymnasium, schools that cater for physically handicapped children, all in one environment. Nevertheless, the children talk about how they feel isolated from society. This is something reinforced by the teachers who show pictures of that the children have drawn or painted, in which prisons and fences are a recurring motif. Later in the film, Herzog travels to America, where we see a German graduate student studying at the University of California, who's living in a completely different environment. Because, as he describes America as being a much younger country, still constructing its own infrastructure, it's able to cater much more easily within society for those who are physically handicapped. So all the public buildings have ramps, there are lifts everywhere, and although this graduate student who is forced to use a wheelchair as a result of polio, um, his roommate in his college dorm helps him with washing and dressing, but otherwise he's almost completely independent, getting around in his wheelchair and even driving a specially modified delivery van that was given to him courtesy of the engineering department, which turned it into a project. It's an interesting story, that one that hasn't really dated. The way that disabled people are perceived by society, I think, is still um, problematic. The children particularly talk about not wanting to be subjects of pity. Um, One mother talks about how she would take her son out to the shops, to the park, normal places around town, but she would get strange, sad looks from people, or comments about how difficult it must be, and but very unsympathetic, very unkind, very um, offensive, really, and turning her child, who seems to be entirely uh, highly intelligent, eloquent young boy, who's at times, judging by the look on his face, wishes that his mother would shut up and give him a turn to talk. And then when she says that she's reluctant to take her son out into the world because of the uh, offensive reactions she gets, when she mentions that she has a disabled child, other people say, "Oh, does he just stay home in his wheelchair all day?" So it becomes a double-edged sword. The society seems unwilling to tolerate those who are different. As I say, it's an interesting film, one that hasn't really dated. And towards the end, uh, we see a footage of a young girl who has. I'm trying to phrase this as mildly as I can without causing any distress. Who has severely underdeveloped arms and legs, playing in the sandpit and planting a plant there. And Herzog asks, through his narrator, what will these children be facing in the future? Is society so unfeeling towards them that these handicapped children also must face a handicapped future? As far as I know, the film isn't available outside this set in the UK. It's a very fine set, and I recommend it very highly. But it's definitely a film worth seeing. It's intelligent and thought provoking, um, and it makes one question one's own assumptions. It's very good.